Hello and welcome, dear Lightwolf listener. My name is Stefan. I'm your podcast host. I'm a leadership catalyst, and today I have the huge pleasure to welcome a wonderful guest here in the Lightwolf podcast. A wonderful good morning, dear Andrea.
Hi, good morning, Stefan. Good morning, everyone.
Andrea Berroth is a wonderful human who I am delighted to have in my life and honored to have in my team as a cooperation partner in our company and in our team. Andrea brings a great personality and 25 years of HR experience in four international companies and in four different industries. Believe it or not, Andrea worked, managed, and led in banking, in automotive, in FMCG, and in pharma. And in doing so and in developing her strong, accomplished career, there are a couple of themes that connect Andrea and me, and that connect Andrea and me and our clients. And these themes include, but are not limited to, coaching. She has great expertise and a huge passion for doing so, for unleashing growth out of individuals. Team development. She's a real expert in turning groups into teams and then teams into high performing teams, and offers consulting in human resource management based on 25 years of experience, based on a certification in coaching. She is a systemic coach and works as consultant, trainer, and coach for a couple of partners, including us. So that's why, maybe that shares already a little bit why I am so happy this morning that Andrea invests her time to be here and share her experience with you, our Lightwolf community. So maybe just a short anecdote on a topic that in our first conversation, Andrea, resonated quickly, and it has to do with team and sports. And your son Marlon is a soccer player, isn't he?
Yes, this is it's not only my son, it's my husband as well. So this is a soccer family.
And that brought us together because my father used to say, Stefan, you were not even 1 year old and you were trying to play football already. So that's one of the passion topics that personally connects Andrea to me, but also business wise, is one source of learning. Because I'm convinced that both on team and also on team performance, a lot can be learned from competitive sports. So that's one of the things that connects us. And maybe, Andrea, you want to share a bit how long we know each other and how we met.
Yes, yes, happy to share. So it's around 1.5 years ago when we had the opportunity to meet in person first time at a Procter and Gamble alumni meeting. And this is the history we share. We both worked for Procter and Gamble. We didn't meet at that time. You left the company, I think, when I just started. And at this alumni meeting, I was happy to see you in person because, of course, I knew you already, and I knew Lightwolf. And at this point in time, I just started my own business. So after working 25 years in corporate world, and I learned a lot, I decided to go for a new adventure and start my own business. You talked about it already very nicely. And yeah, then I asked you for a meeting, and we met and found out that good leadership, and so I call it healthy leadership, has a lot in common in values, in beliefs, and what we um, aim to change in companies and with leaders. Since
Yeah,
then, actually, our collaboration started, and it's a pleasure to work together with you in different companies.
great. Thank you very much. Um, when you Two questions at this point. I assume that you thought hard about your career decision to leave the corporate world. Maybe it's not coincidence that you and I, we both spent 25 years in the corporate world, which is when I left. What made you leave?
Um, Actually, I don't want to talk about what made me leave, but more what I was looking for and I was searching for. And it was a long time wish, like 10 years maybe before, when I felt I'd like to lead my own business. I learned a lot in the companies. I had the opportunity also to change a lot. And I changed myself, transitioned myself a lot and other people. But yeah, 2 years or 2.5 years ago, I think it was time for me to start up my own business. It was more looking into the future, and what I'm creating now is a way of working I'd love to do for the next 25 years. Also, I'm not looking into retirement, but I want to create something for myself, a business that I will be able to do for many, many years in future.
Awesome. And again, you and I are very closely connected because we both care a lot about leadership. Your concept is healthy leadership. Let's start with why it matters. Why does good leadership matter to you, Andrea?
Yeah, so of course, in 25 years in the company, I had the opportunity to observe a lot of different leaders and also to coach them internally. And I was able to see what a big difference and big impact leadership can do to the business. And yeah, I was kind of looking into that and found out for myself that good leadership or healthy leadership has to do with self reflection of leaders and that they know about themselves and that they are interested to learn about their team members or their organizations as well. What motivates my people? Um, how can I support them to grow? So, fostering a culture where people develop and will be able to deliver the best they can. So, unleash the potential of people. This is what leadership means to me.
Great. And why did you decide to call your philosophy healthy leadership?
Because I feel it is, you can call it good or healthy. I more came also from my own experience with a holistic view. I also came from with a yoga license and so on. I came from um, also from a body point of view, and for a long life point of view, that it needs to be that we as leaders should look into the holistic approach, also being physically and psychological healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's an absolute requirement to be healthy in all aspects. And it reminds me now of a quote that our partner Tine Berges once shared. You know, only when you're good to yourself, you can be good to others.
Mm.
And health in all those aspects is a prerequisite for any success, for any growth, for any leadership. So I like it a lot. Now, um, when you and I defined a topic that we would like to zoom in on, you suggested a topic that I met again yesterday. Yeah, I gave a workshop at St. Gallen University yesterday on the campus with about 40 START fellows, young entrepreneurs doing their masters. And asking questions after I shared a few thoughts on leadership. And I thought of you this morning because one of the questions they asked was about fear, i.e., Stefan, what can I do when a boss creates fear of making mistakes? Bam. And I went like, see, that's where Andrea's question is spot on. And that's what we want to talk about this morning as one topic, Andrea. So, leadership without creating fear, and maybe even also a word on the connection to wolves as a symbol for leadership. When you think about your career, Andrea, in the context of healthy leadership, what are your first thoughts related to fear in the workplace and fear in leadership?
Hmm. So, actually, like the young people you met yesterday, um, this question comes up a lot, and I observed it in business a lot. And there are leaders who believe that pressure and putting fear into groups and people let them perform better. And this is something that we hear from time to time. We know it from our own upbringing in schools. It's all around maybe the conviction or belief, if we put fear to people, they're going to perform better. And yeah, this is what comes to my mind first when you ask me about creating fear in leadership.
Yeah. Now, it's a fine line, and I know that you and we are on the same side of that fine line.
Hmm.
Because, yes, I have heard statements like, no pressure, no diamonds. Yeah. From the world of very competitive sports.
Hmm.
But my impression when I hear people say this is like they do it a little bit like with a twinkle in the eye, so half joking, but they don't define to what extent they mean that seriously. Um, I think, well, I just dislike it. I just dislike fear as a means of leadership. I just don't believe it. But maybe you want to share a bit. Why do some people think it's a great idea to create fear?
Yeah, maybe first of all to say that I met leaders who were not aware about that they were creating fear.
Aha.
That is probably and some leaders listening now, maybe they start thinking about, am I creating fear? Because when I talked to leaders and gave feedback to them, they said, oh, I never intended to create fear. I just wanted to ask questions or just wanted to give more input to a topic. Am I creating fear? So some leaders are not aware about that because they're with maybe a bit missing empathy. They're not looking into the people they work with, but they're just coming from their own side, thinking, okay, the way I'm asking questions is just uh, building creativity maybe in people and not creating fear.
Mm. So my two next questions are about awareness and intent.
Hmm.
So you just shared that you found some leaders who created fear but were not aware. And then your technique of helping self reflection may work and often does work, which is great. Mm, let's go back to those few,
Hmm.
and fortunately it's only few. Yeah, I
Hmm.
learned that about 1.5% of the global population are narcissists, and not every CEO is one, but apparently the statistics say that 5 to 6% of CEOs are narcissists, so 1 in 20. 19 in 20 are not, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it reminds me of a DAX CEO who I have been working with last year, with him and with his CHRO, 1 hour. And I remember him saying, Stefan, I just need to be an asshole sometimes, yeah, for people to perform, unquote. Why do you think, Andrea, that some leaders think they have to be mean at times? They have to consciously, intentionally at least accept fear. Why?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, I think, first of all, it might be that their own motivation arose from um, experiencing this fear, and they saw themselves like growing into these top management positions because they were able to manage if they experienced fear. So I think it's a very strong conviction if someone at the top of a company says something like this. But this is something that is it's a very individual perspective of how um, performance grows.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And what I've also learned is that humans mirror human behavior. So when these typically it's men, I've seen very few women using this technique. It's more men. Um, but when these men create fear almost intentionally, maybe that's what they are used to. Maybe that's how they were shaped. Maybe that's what they learned when they were young, right?
Hmm.
So it might be habitual. And again, back to your coaching expertise and your approach to make them stop and self-reflect. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And then looking at your long, rich, and accomplished career, I know you've also coached CEOs personally, right? In different contexts. Would you mind giving an example where you observed, you felt the presence of fear created by an individual,
Hmm.
what it did to the people in the room,
Hmm.
and how you dealt with it, Andrea?
Yeah, yeah. So I take an example which I experienced myself, working with a leader and observing these behaviors of creating fear in smaller groups, in bigger groups. And what happened within the organization is that people kind of stopped creating, stopped thinking, just were waiting for not being targeted by this leader. And it was tough to experience it myself and to and to see and to observe it how others are impacted by this behavior. And I was observing it for some time and was wondering, why is not anybody saying anything about it? And after some time, I decided to talk to this leader. And of course, just the two of us in a room. And I asked if he was aware of the fear he's creating in his organization. And the answer was no. Am I creating fear? It was, I think it was a bit intentional and with the eye wink, like you said. But it was a mix of, um, I don't want to be like that, but at the same time, also believing he would be able to create better performance, higher performance with this behavior. And when I shared my observations with him, he was surprised, he was grateful. That surprised me. He said, I would wish more people would come to me and tell me. So the smaller, let's say, and more afraid people were, the more I observed he used this behavior.
Wow. Wow. Um, One question you just woke up in my mind has to do with courage.
Mhm.
Did you feel, were you nervous when you started this? I call it the real conversation, the
Yeah,
real
yeah,
conversation that no one else was daring to have. Were
yeah.
you nervous?
Yes, I was very nervous. And it took me some time, and the pressure in myself was bigger and bigger to do something about it, and it took a lot of courage. The reaction was different than expected. Um, yes, it took a lot of courage to address this.
What reaction had you expected before?
Neglection. So no, I don't see that. It's a different kind of leadership. I think that's the right way. So no pressure, no diamonds, like you said. That's the expectation I had of the reaction.
Mhm. And thank God you had the courage to start that real conversation. How did you prepare for it?
Um, so for myself, being nervous, I tried before to calm down myself and being very aware about the words I'm saying. I used some uh, t- just timely observations I had where I felt he would be able to also remember the situations. So, most best to do it with very concrete observations and not like waiting for weeks, but taking the courage and then talk to the person um, just short after you have observed it. I think that's very important.
Yeah. And how did you calm yourself down?
So for myself, I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm using breathing techniques for myself. And from time to time, I'm using these techniques also with my coachees, because when I meet them, a lot of times we're starting the session and there is this nervousness or stress in the room. So, using these techniques to first of all calming down the person, only then we will be able to work and change. And these are the techniques I use for myself as well.
Yeah, awesome. So, calming down yourself, breathing techniques, using very recent examples where you had been in the room together, and then low volume and asking very well considered questions to start self reflection. And even further down that road, Andrea, had you also prepared follow ups if your worst expectations had come true? What would you have asked as a second or as a third question?
Yes,
Did you
yes, yes.
prepare that as well?
Yes, I prepared this as well. So I also, um, when he shared with me, oh, I don't want to do that, then I said, okay, how can I help you? Can I give you some signs in the meetings, or how can I help you that it does not occur anymore? Um, yes, so I also went into the solution mode or to help him to change,
Yeah,
knowing
very,
that it won't be an easy thing.
yeah. Um, did this man change his behavior afterwards?
Slowly, slowly, very slowly. And I think it is like it is with every kind of automated behaviors. That is what we see in our projects as well. changing behavior, it's not about understanding and knowing it. It's not a cognitive thing. It's something in your feelings that you need to set, in your emotions. And it is about training. It's like we are very clear on that it's possible to learn to be a good leader. And it's about training, practicing, receiving feedback, and then you can change. So, with this person, it was very important to again also give positive feedback when seeing something is changing, but at the same time also addressing when same things happened again.
Yeah. It was so nice when you answered slowly. But um, did this man manage to achieve a lasting change?
I I observed as long as I worked with him um, that he needed to have kind of little feedbacks and stops again and again.
Mhm. Yeah, good. But there is hope.
Of course, more than that. Otherwise, we wouldn't do our job.
Exactly, exactly. Let's relate this topic to a very famous researcher who, based on my reading and studies, is at least very strongly related to a topic called psychological safety.
Mhm.
Her name is Amy Edmondson. Do you know her as well?
Yes, yes, of
Yeah,
course, I know her. So, in all the companies I worked, at least the last two, um, psychological safety was a very important topic for us.
yeah, yeah. Would you want to share a bit about the core concept of psychological safety?
Yes, so Amy um, uh, give us a very good model and also scientific research about um, what it does positively with your ability to have a high performance when you feel psychological safe. And feeling psychological safe means that you can be yourself at work or in life. So you would be able to bring your whole self to work as far as you want to, and you are seen as the person you are. And if this concept really works in companies, then there is no fear, and there people don't need to be afraid to bring up ideas. For example, it's about having a good culture of mistakes, failures, learning out of failures, growing together. Also, if someone has kind of not a good time, others jumping in and helping. So, psychological safety is a concept. Um, in the companies I worked, it was not only a concept. It was not only in brochures or on the walls. It was something that was experienced by people. And leaders really um, digged into it and learned about it and discussed it with their teams. So every leader should know what psychological safety means to the individual people in their teams. For the one that is more outspoken and extrovert, it means he or she wants to share everything in teams and feels then psychological safe. And at the same time, with all the diversity also in style we have, there might be also people where psychological safety means that they are not asked to share everything about their private life, for example, or what they are thinking around. So it's a very individual concept. Psychological safety does not mean the same to everyone.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love the work that Amy has done. I'm very delighted to hear that in two of your four companies where you had employed roles, psychological safety was a topic and was taken seriously, because it's not coincidental. I've been in Google offices 3 times in the last 12 months, in Manhattan and in Zurich, and it, having learned about what is the difference between strong teams at Google and less successful teams at Google, it's that very thing. It's psychological safety. It's the driver number one. That's the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's powerful, and it's just still it's a big topic that me as a person, me as Stefan, I just fail to comprehend why people want to put pressure intentionally on others. But there are people who see it this way. There is a very prominent one in North America these days who wants to use that as a means to change the world. Um, Now, I think one different concept of leadership, Andrea, is the contrast, in a way, to using fear. It's servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's obvious from the word when you think about it, i.e., serving others. And I know I've had 16 different bosses in my career, 16 women and men who were responsible for me. And some of them were very strong and used servant leadership as a strong philosophy and as a regular behavior. What is your experience with servant leadership, Andrea? And how do you need to draw a line between being sufficiently strong and authoritarian and, on the other hand, serving others?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think that you need to draw a line here. So I experienced or I lived the philosophy of leadership myself. And it first of all comes with a very humble view of yourself. So um, if you are clear as a leader that you and your team only can be at the best performance when you work together as a team, and that you give a lot of empowerment and power to the people in the team and let them grow best. So when the two of us working in companies to find kind of the one sentence what leadership means to them, um, we then at the end find out, develop our people to their peak performance, most of the time comes out of this discussion when we do this with top management teams. So going away from your own kind of success and performance, shining as a leader, but let your people in the organization shine and help them to shine. This is what servant leadership is about.
Yeah, I love it. And you and I both know people who master this, right? Um, Very, very good. Now, when you think about your own concept, your philosophy, Andrea, of healthy leadership, it touches psychological safety, it touches servant leadership, it touches courage, as you've displayed in confronting that leader in your career. What other important topic of healthy leadership would you like to share and highlight?
Um, it's, I think, what I said before, it's a holistic view on how we, as I see it from a company standpoint and a sustainability standpoint. So what we are facing a time where we are all high performance is needed, of course, and it's very important to keep people in the company. So retention is important, and to keep people in the company in a healthy way, so they will be able to work, to enjoy working for a longer time. So luckily at these times we are all getting older and older, and we still have the power also to contribute in businesses. It's not anymore that people just waiting for their retirement, but they are still feeling strong and healthy enough to give their knowledge, they experience into the companies. And I see it really from a company standpoint. I see it as it's one part, like in ESG, it's one part of a sustainability point to keep your employees healthy so that that they're enjoying working in the companies.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. It resonates very strongly with me as well. Yeah. Cool. Um, One more topic that is related to our collaboration and to the name of this podcast. Um, when I 16 years ago sat at home asking myself, trying to learn from people who I admire, the skill I admire is the ability to make the complex simple and the simple exciting.
Mhm.
So I thought, how on earth will I ever be able to summarize something as complex as leadership? Yeah? Just reflect about the things you've shared in the last half hour, Andrea, and you could share in days. I know it. It's so complex. How do you make that complex thing simple, ideally in one word and in one symbol, and that symbol and that one word exciting for people to start engaging and discussing? After about 10 minutes, I had an idea that I decided to take and run with. It's called Leitwolf. It's the leader of the pack. And there is a reason why I've decided so. But would you mind sharing first what kind of positive or also controversial perspective you had upon your first encounter with the concept called Leitwolf?
Yeah, yeah, happy to share that and sharing it very openly. You know it since we work together. So it happened to me. It's mainly when I talk to female leaders that they feel a wolf creates fear in them. And I felt this is one of the reason I also decided to talk about fear in our podcast today, because I wanted to learn from you, and I learned then from you when I came back with these observations. I learned from you why you chose the wolf as this strong symbol, and maybe you would like to share with our listeners here as well. Um, what managers can learn from wolves in leadership.
Yeah, with pleasure. I mean, what people do know is that wolves are hunters and that they kill to survive. What many people also know is that wolves are intelligent animals, very high intellectual intelligence. But what many people are less aware of is that wolf packs are families, that they are often led by a woman and a man. And if they are led by one, there are as many packs led by a female wolf as there are packs led by a male wolf. And some of the concepts that travel to our work, Andrea, yours and mine, when we do projects together, include diversity, for example. You touched upon diversity, age diversity, 10 minutes ago here in this conversation, Andrea. And while in the human business world, my observation is that once you are 60, some regard you as too old to be useful. While in, in my experience, this is not at all true, and it can be the exact opposite. Yeah? And wolves have long understood the value of age diversity. Let's get specific. when a young wolf pack made up only of young animals hunts, then only every 1 in 5 attempts is successful. And 1 in 5 can already mean an existential risk to the family because they cannot survive 20 unsuccessful hunts because then they die, right? So they need to be successful in hunting. When there is only one elder wolf, one elder female or male wolf mixed into the young pack, then the success rate jumps from every 1 in 5 to every 1 in 2 hunts being successful. So they know age diversity.
Mm-hmm.
They also know care. Because before any wolf pack goes to the hunt, they ask a young animal, typically 2 or 3 years old, to stay with the puppies, with the babies. So they install a kindergarten before the rest goes hunting. So that's the knowledge I had about wolves before I decided to adopt that as the symbol for our leadership programs. There's a little bit of marketing experience in me as well, because I've been a marketing guy for about 15, 20 years. And one of the things I like about brands is strong brands polarize. If a brand pleases everyone, it's irrelevant to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I have never found a brand on this planet that's loved by everyone. If you try to please everyone, you won't reach anything. So I think you have to accept that many like you and some don't. And that's the same also with this concept of Lightwolf, I think. In my experience now, having worked with more than 11,000 leaders, probably 95 to 97% of them go great, including many women who say it's a good concept. But there is maybe 2, 3, 4% who, before the first conversation, have some hesitation and maybe some fear, which typically takes about 5 minutes, which is the length of this exchange on wolves. And they start to see the thing a little bit differently. And then let me share a final real experience that I wish I had on video or on photo, but I didn't expect it. And that's why I just have it in my heart and in my mind forever. About 7 years ago, I visited a group of 3 wolves, 3 siblings, 3 years old, in the north of Germany, before a Night Wolf program. They are in a 2x2 kilometer cage, so a huge space, and I saw them being fed. I observed them for an hour. And after that hour, I asked the woman who is supporting these animals, Mrs. Ascani, do you think I could go inside this cage? And she responded, Stefan, I have had men here who I would never ever allow to get into that cage. And Andrea, it's probably no coincidence that it's about creating fear.
Mm-hmm.
What these men did is they go to the cage, they rattle the cage, they shout at the animals, hey wolves, come on over here. And then I don't let these men into the cage because they are scaring the shit out of my animals and then they might react. But you, Stefan, you don't. So if you feel strong enough to go in, then go in. And I said, okay, Mrs. Ascani, please open the cage. And I went in. And then without thinking a lot, I instinctively sat down on a wooden bench because my intent is not to be dominant to those wolves, not to be above them,
Yeah, it's important.
but to be on eye level.
Mm-hmm.
I also decided I will not say a word. I did not say anything in the next 15 minutes. And I didn't want to take any decision. I wanted them to take the decision. And I did not want to send any stress signal. because they were stressed enough. And yes, Andrea, I was also a bit stressed because it's not a regular routine of mine that I'm going into a cage with 3 wolves who grew up in the wild, right? So the first wolf comes around, looks at me, finds me completely and utterly boring. The second one gets to 20 centimeters distance and sniffs my hand from 20 centimeters and moves away. But the third one is about 1 meter away from me, like you seem now.
Mm-hmm.
We make eye contact for about 2 minutes, which felt to me like 2 weeks. And my blood pressure must have been 300 in my pulse as well. I was scared, I was nervous, but I decided not to send stress signals and to have him take all decisions. After about 2 minutes, he lowered his ears, he lowered his head, he came forward in between my legs, came up, and licked square through my face, which in wolves is a signal to say, guy, you are okay.
Mm-hmm.
You are accepted as part of this pack and as part of this family. And that's a late confirmation that happened in 2018, Andrea. I took the decision on Lightwolf 9 years before that in 2009. But it's a late confirmation for me and another very emotional and very intense lesson I learned. I think it has to do with sending stress signals, so creating fear,
Mm-hmm.
or the exact opposite. In my view, good leadership is about the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You should never intend to send stress signals. And I've long known that humans mirror human behavior. Yeah? When I have the pleasure to be in a new country whose language I don't speak, like Myanmar, where I've visited with Tanya and the family years ago, I only speak one word, which is Mingalaba, and that's thank you. When I walk the streets and smile at people, they smile back. So humans mirror human behavior. But since that moment with the wolves, I know that also wolves mirror human behavior. And yes, I was scared before entering that cage.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to radiate calm induced a response of calm and a moment of magic that's giving me goosebumps now, right now, from forehead to shin, and will stay with me for lifetime. And just confirmed to me again that leaders, human leaders, can learn a lot of good lessons about leadership from wolves.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and thanks for starting this conversation on the topic with your honest questioning of the concept. But I think we both together more and more see there is just an initial hurdle to overcome. And once it's overcome, people really enjoy the concept because the
Yes.
community is growing fast.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. So back to you, Andrea. I have 2 more set of questions. One profound, bigger one, and then a set of short ones that
Yes.
we ask every interview participant. So the more profound one, listening to your rich experience, listening to the courage you displayed in this moment, when you initiated the real conversation, the courageous conversation, but also talking about your perception of psychological safety, of servant leadership, and all the other things. If you could give the leaders, and there is thousands of people listening to you now,
Mm-hmm.
if you could give those leaders one tip, one question, one idea for them to work with and to think about, what would that be?
Yeah, I um, uh, I'm just reading a book, and we can talk about it shortly. I would ask them to reflect on if they're really listening to others. This is the question I would love to give to leaders. Reflecting on, am I really listening or do I have the answer in mind already? Uh, does the answer comes from my side, or am I patient and willing to wait the answer and the solution come from the person I talk with?
Brilliant. Thank you. The quick ones. Andrea, what is the best advice you ever received?
It's a very emotional one. Someone told me, whatever you do, think about your son observing you, and if you would like him to act in the same way.
I love it. What skill do you regard as the most important one in leaders?
It's you can imagine what I said already. It's a self-reflection, being humble.
Brilliant. What is your personal go to tool when times get stressy?
Yeah, I think we talked about it as well. So for me, it's important to take some time for me, just for me alone. Um, and then breathing, for example, calming down myself. Um, this is what I do when I feel stress. And actually, over the years, I am better in realizing that I'm stressed.
When do you realize that you're stressed?
Um, Actually, in many, many years, I didn't realize that I'm stressed. I felt like I can do it all, and I can. There are no barriers. And at one point in time, I needed to realize that there is. I need to recover more. I need to take the time for myself to have the strength back. And so when I work, for example, I give all my energy. It's not only 100%, 150, but at the same time, I also need to take time for myself to recover, um, to get the strength back.
Thank you. Which book impressed you lately?
Yeah. So I'm reading Socrates in Sneakers currently. And this book really goes to my heart. And whoever I recommended the book to, after like they're reading the first chapters, they're calling me and telling me, this is exactly what I feel. It is about listening. It goes back to the Socrates idea philosophy of learning from others, really being interested in what they are telling you, not coming from you inside, what your answers might be, what your experiences are. So you could observe yourself how quickly you jump back on your own experiences, but focusing on the other person and really asking questions that goes to the other person. That is the book about. It's a very good book for leaders. It is about having really deep conversations.
Fantastic. If there was one thing that you could change in the working world tomorrow,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
would it be?
Yeah, so it is about diversity, and it's not gender diversity only. It's about also diversity in style, um, in working style, and so on. And sometimes in coaching, I use the miracle question or the wonder question. If, for example, a leader thinks he would not be able to change things in the team, and then I'm asking like, imagine there is a miracle or a wonder happened, and tomorrow morning, everything in your team, like every diverse style, is can be lived and is creating this high performance you wish to have in your team, because everyone can um, deliver or perform at their peak. To change this back into what you observe today, what do you need to do as a leader? And then sometimes this creates ideas about, okay, I have influence on that. I would be able to change it back into today's culture, but I want to have it differently in future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, dear Andrea. It's been a pleasure to listen. There was such a wealth of insight, experience, and specific tips for the audience here. In the name of the entire Lightwolf community, a big time thank you for taking the time and sharing it. I'm happy that life brought you into my life. I'm glad to work with you, Andrea, and I look forward to many, many more years and great projects with you by my side and with me by your side. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, dear Andrea Berroth.
Thank you, Stefan. It was a pleasure to talk to you.